In the early 20th century, wealthy tourists visiting Florida were said to buy baby alligators as unusual souvenirs. According to legend, many owners eventually grew tired of their exotic pets and flushed the animals down their toilets. The story claims the reptiles survived and grew into enormous monsters living beneath the streets of New York City. The tale of the sewer alligator has circulated for decades. Most people assume it's pure fiction, but something strange has happened over the years. Occasionally, real reptiles have been discovered in city drains, escaped pets that somehow found their way underground. Small fragments of truth hidden inside an exaggerated story. And that tiny piece of reality may explain why the legend refuses to die. Because most urban legends follow the same pattern. A fear, a rumor, and just enough truth to make the story feel possible. Once those ingredients come together, the imagination does the rest. Stories about things that lurk in the forest at night. Strangers who steal children. Creatures hiding just beneath the streets of our cities. These are not ancient myths or fairy tales. They are urban legends. Modern folklore passed from person-to-person, stories told around campfires, whispered in schoolyards, repeated on radio shows, and shared across the internet. Folklorist Jan Harold Brunvand spent decades studying these stories. In his influential book, The Vanishing Hitchhiker, Brunvand argued that even in the modern world, societies continue to create folklore just as vividly as ancient cultures once did. Urban legends thrive because they feel almost believable. Tales that have spread across continents, across generations, and across the dark corners of the internet. Most urban legends don't reveal monsters in the shadows, but they reveal something just as unsettling: the fears we carry with us. Urban legends are rarely random. Most function as warnings, stories that teach people what to fear. And the audience for those warnings often changes with age. Teenagers hear one kind of story, adults hear another, parents hear something different again. Some of the most famous urban legends are aimed at teenagers, especially those alone at night. Folklorists note that stories like these serve the same purpose as older cautionary tales, warnings meant to shape behavior, much like the dangers faced by Little Red Riding Hood in traditional folklore. One of the best known is The Babysitter and The Man Upstairs. A teenage babysitter is alone in a quiet suburban house while the parents are out for the evening. The phone rings. A man's voice asks a strange question. "Have you checked the children?" She hangs up, assuming it's a prank. But the phone rings again. The same voice, the same question. Finally, she calls the police. They tell her to keep the caller on the line long enough for them to trace the call. Moments later, they call back. Their voice is urgent. "Leave the house immediately. The calls are coming," from inside the house. Another legend spread through American high schools during the 1950s and 60s. It became known as the Hookman. A teenage couple sits parked on a dark lover's lane. A news bulletin interrupts the radio.
Police in the area are searching tonight for a dangerous escaped mental patient. Authorities describe the suspect as a white male.
An escaped killer is on the loose. He has a hook for a hand. Uneasy, the couple decides to leave. When they arrive home, the boy walks around the car to open the passenger door. And freezes. He finds a scratch on the car and a metal hook. Folklorists believe stories like this functioned as warnings about secluded places and risky behavior. Stay away from dark roads. And maybe Go home earlier. A traveler wakes up in a seedy hotel room. He has no recollection of how he got there. There is a pain. There is a vagueness.
Come here.
And fresh stitches where one of his kidneys used to be. This story is known as the kidney heist. The legend spread rapidly through chain emails and early internet forums. Urban legends warning adults often focus on the fear of unfamiliar people and environments. This example emerged in the 1990s as international travel became more common. Another warning circulated widely through emails and urban rumor networks in the early 2000s. Maybe it's a good idea not to accept perfume samples late at night in a parking lot.
Care for a perfume sample?
Oh, sure. It's a new fragrance, very fresh, very strong.
In this legend, the perfume is said to contain chemicals designed to render the victim unconscious. It became known as the knockout perfume scam. Some urban legends are aimed not at teenagers or adults, but at parents. Stories designed to protect children. During the Cold War, one of the most unsettling of these stories circulated across Eastern Europe. It involved a mysterious black luxury car known as the Black Volga. According to the legend, the car drove slowly through neighborhoods. Children who approached it would disappear. In some versions, inside the car waiting was a government official. In others, it was a Russian Orthodox priest. And in some, the devil. Historians believe the story reflected deep public mistrust of authority in societies where government power operated largely out of sight. In North America, another warning legend became associated with a very different tradition, Halloween. Beginning in the 1970s, parents began hearing frightening rumors about poisoned or razor-bladed candy.
Happy Halloween! Take your pick.
The story became known as poisoned Halloween candy. Despite widespread panic, documented cases of strangers tampering with Halloween candy are extremely rare. The legend continues to circulate every year because it taps into a powerful parental fear that danger might arrive disguised as something harmless.
Bloody Mary.
Many urban legends involve games or rituals, especially those played by teenagers daring each other to confront the supernatural. One of the most famous childhood dares involves a mirror. Participants gather in a dark bathroom. The lights are turned off. Then they stare into the mirror and chant a name, Bloody Mary. The chant repeats 3 times, or sometimes 13. According to the legend, a ghostly woman appears in the mirror, sometimes screaming, sometimes reaching out from the glass. The legend may be connected to older European traditions of mirror divination. Divination practices, such as catoptromancy, the use of reflective surfaces to attempt to perceive hidden knowledge or visions, having roots going back to ancient Greece and Egypt. Folklore tells of the practice of young women using the mirror late at night to see an image of their future husband. Bloody Mary is a reference to Queen Mary, the First of England, whose short reign during the 16th century was known for the persecution of Protestants, with many burned at the stake. By the 20th century, Bloody Mary becomes a schoolyard. Dare in the United States and United Kingdom shared more as a social challenge than a belief system. But the structure proves powerful enough to enter popular culture. In 1992's Candyman, directed by Bernard Rose, the mirror invocation becomes lethal. Whereas in Tim Burton's 1988 film, Beetlejuice, repetition becomes a control mechanism over the supernatural. The same idea persists. Repetition is not symbolic, it is functional.
私は綺麗ですか?
In Japan, one urban legend spread so quickly, it reportedly caused panic among school children. It is the story of the masked woman known as Kuchisake-onna. She approaches strangers wearing a surgical mask, which in Japan is not unusual. She asks a simple question. Am I pretty?
私は綺麗ですか?
If the victim answers yes, she removes the mask. Her mouth has been sliced open from ear to ear. She asks again, Am I pretty now? The legend exploded across Japan in the late 1970s. Schools reportedly warned children to travel home in groups. Whether the panic was real or exaggerated, the story quickly became one of Japan's most famous urban legends. In the autumn of 1966, residents of Point Pleasant, West Virginia began reporting something strange in the night sky. Witnesses described a large winged creature, more than 6 feet tall, with glowing red eyes. The first widely reported sighting came from 2 young couples driving near an abandoned munitions site known as the TNT area. They claimed a dark figure rose from the ground beside the road and began following their car. It kept pace with them as they accelerated. Its wings spread wide, its eyes glowing in the headlights. Local newspapers soon gave the creature a name: Mothman. Over the following year, dozens of sightings were reported across the region. The sightings soon drew the attention of paranormal investigator John Keel, who traveled to Point Pleasant to document the growing number of strange reports. Some witnesses claimed the creature appeared perched on rooftops. Others said it hovered silently above the highway at night. The strange encounters continued for more than a year. Then, on the 15th of December, 1967, tragedy struck. The Silver Bridge connecting Point Pleasant to Ohio suddenly collapsed during evening traffic. 46 people were killed. After the disaster, many locals began to wonder if the earlier sightings had been a warning, a strange omen appearing before the catastrophe. Today, the legend remains deeply tied to the town. Each year, Point Pleasant hosts the Mothman Festival, where thousands of visitors gather to celebrate the mystery. And standing in the center of town is a gleaming metal statue of the creature itself, proof that sometimes an urban legend does more than tell a story. Sometimes it transforms an entire place. Not all urban legends live only in stories. Sometimes they attach themselves to a place. One of the strangest examples lies just outside Clifton, Virginia, at a small railway underpass locals call Bunny Man Bridge. The legend dates back to the early 1970s. According to the most common version of the story, a man dressed in a rabbit costume began appearing near the bridge late at night. He carried a hatchet. Witnesses claimed he would emerge from the darkness, screaming at anyone who entered the tunnel. Some versions of the legend say the Bunny Man was an escaped mental patient. Others claim he was the ghost of a man who had hanged himself beneath the bridge. Over time, the details changed, as urban legends often do, but the central image remained the same: a human figure, wearing a rabbit suit, standing alone beneath the bridge at night. The story became widely known after 2 incidents were reported to the Fairfax County Police Department in 1970. In both cases, witnesses claimed a man in a rabbit costume had threatened them while holding an axe. No one was ever seriously harmed, and the mysterious figure was never identified. But the reports were enough to ignite the legend. Within a few years, teenagers began visiting the bridge late at night, hoping to catch a glimpse of the Bunny Man. Today, the location remains one of the most famous urban legend sites in the United States. And like many places tied to folklore, the bridge itself hasn't changed. Just a quiet road, a narrow underpass, and the unsettling feeling that somewhere in the darkness, someone might still be standing there. Some urban legends don't stay stories. Eventually, they attach themselves to a location. And once that happens, the place itself begins to feel contaminated. One of the most famous examples sits in the rural Midwest of the United States, a small graveyard outside the tiny town of Stull, Kansas. The cemetery is known as Stull Cemetery. At first glance, it looks ordinary. A modest country burial ground, weathered stones, tall grass moving in the wind. But for decades, rumors have claimed something very different. According to legend, this cemetery is one of the 7 gateways to hell. The stories began circulating widely in the 1970s after a student newspaper from University of Kansas published an article describing local folklore surrounding the site. From that point on, the legends grew rapidly. Visitors claimed strange things happened here. A ruined church on the property was said to contain a staircase descending directly into hell. Another story tells of a strange stone in the cemetery, a marker so cursed that if it is moved, the devil himself will appear. Locals whispered about supernatural activity on 2 nights each year: Halloween and the spring equinox. On those nights, according to legend, the devil rises from the cemetery. Whether people believed it or not, the reputation spread far beyond Kansas. By the 1980s, the story had become so widely known that an unexpected detail entered the legend. When Pope John Paul II reportedly flew over Kansas during a U.S. visit, locals claimed his plane refused to pass directly over Stull because the ground below was considered unholy. There is no evidence this actually happened, but the story stuck. And that is the strange power of urban legends. Once a place becomes part of the story, the landscape itself begins to change. Teenagers drove hours just to stand in the cemetery at night. Paranormal investigators arrived with cameras and recording equipment. Trespassing became so common that the church building on the property was eventually demolished. Yet the legend never disappeared. Even today, Stull Cemetery is still spoken about in the same breath as America's most infamous haunted locations. Because sometimes a story doesn't just haunt people. Sometimes it haunts a place. And once that happens, the legend is no longer easy to escape. Stories about the black-eyed children first began circulating on paranormal message boards in the late 1990s. Many of the early reports trace back to an account written by Texas journalist Brian Bethel in 1996, who described a strange encounter outside a movie theater in Abilene, Texas. According to Bethel, 2 children approached his parked car late at night. They asked for a ride home so they could get money for movie tickets. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but something about them felt wrong. Their voices were calm, almost rehearsed, and they spoke with an unsettling insistence. Witnesses in later reports described similar encounters. Pale children appearing at doors or car windows late at night, politely asking to be let inside. They never forced their way in. They always asked for permission. But their eyes, completely black, no iris, no whites, just darkness. As the stories spread across early internet forums and paranormal websites, new encounters began appearing from different places: the United States, the United Kingdom, even parts of Europe. Each account slightly different, but always with the same warning: if they knock on your door, don't let them in. The fear of clowns has a name: coulrophobia. To many people, clowns are harmless performers, symbols of childhood, circuses, and laughter. But for others, the painted smile hides something deeply unsettling. Heavy makeup freezes the face into an expression that never changes. Real emotion disappears behind grease paint. And the human brain, wired to read faces for danger, struggles to understand what it's seeing. Popular culture has long explored this darker side of the clown. Characters like the Joker of DC Comics turned the clown into an icon of chaos and madness. And in 1986, horror author Stephen King introduced the world to Pennywise, the predatory clown lurking beneath the town in his novel, It. In the summer of 2016, reports of strange clown sightings began appearing online. On August 1st, photographs surfaced, showing a lone figure dressed as a clown, standing in an empty parking lot in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The clown wasn't performing. He simply stood there silent and motionless in the dark. The images spread quickly across social media, and so did sightings. Hashtags like clown sighting and clownpocalypse began trending as users shared new photos, videos, and supposed encounters. And as the posts spread, copycat appearances began multiplying. Across the United States and soon in other countries, people reported clowns appearing late at night near roads, apartment complexes, and wooded areas. Within weeks, the growing wave of sightings became known as the 2016 clown sightings. What began as a few unsettling images online had turned into a nationwide panic. In 2012, a post appeared on the website Reddit. It was written by a user named Blue Tidal. He described walking home alone late at night through quiet city streets. That's when he noticed a man standing beneath a streetlight. The stranger was dancing, not gracefully, but with strange, jerky movements, almost like a puppet. As the witness drew closer, the man slowly turned toward him. He was smiling, not a friendly smile, but a wide, silent grin that never moved. The man kept dancing, staring directly at him the entire time. The witness crossed the street to avoid him, but when he looked back, the smiling man had stopped dancing and was now walking toward him, slowly, still smiling. Stories like this spread quickly online. But the idea of a smiling, unnatural stranger is older than the internet. In the 1960s, during the strange events surrounding the Mothman sightings in West Virginia, witnesses reported encounters with a mysterious figure known as Indrid Cold. He was described as calm, unsettling, and often smiling in a way that made people deeply uncomfortable. Over time, details change. Names change. Settings move from lonely highways to quiet city streets. But the shape of the story remains the same. Because folklore doesn't disappear. It evolves. And on the internet, legends can spread faster than ever.
A 23-year-old woman who stabbed a former classmate to please a fictional character known as Slender Man.
Few internet legends have spread faster than Slender Man. The character originated online in 2009 as part of a digital horror contest. But the story quickly evolved into a full mythology. Slender Man is described as a tall, faceless figure wearing a black suit. He appears in forests, watching children, sometimes abducting them. What began as fiction became disturbingly real. In May 2014, two 12-year-old girls, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire, lured their friend Peyton Leutner into the woods and stabbed her 19 times, claiming they did it to please the Slender Man. Against all odds, Peyton survived. The crime shocked the world and became known as the Slender Man stabbing. The legend had crossed from the internet into reality. An American farmer travels home through a forest. At the edge of the road stands a lone traveler. The farmer hesitates, but the road is empty for miles, so the farmer nods. The stranger climbs into the buggy and sits beside him. For a while, they ride in silence. Something about the stranger feels wrong, not threatening exactly, just off. Eventually, the farmer turns to speak, but the traveler is gone. There was nowhere to step off. Only the quiet road and the unsettling question of who the stranger really was. It may be the most widely told ghost story in the world. Across continents and cultures, people describe the same strange encounter. A passenger appears on a lonely road. They travel in silence, and before the journey ends, they disappear. Folklorists eventually gave the story a name: the Vanishing Hitchhiker. One of the earliest recorded versions appears in Sweden in 1602. It was written down by a Lutheran priest named Joan Petri Klint, who collected reports of strange omens and supernatural events. In the story, a priest and two farmers are returning from a winter market when they encounter a young maid walking along the road. She asks to ride with them, and they allow her into their carriage. Later, they stop at an inn. The maid asks for a jug of beer. But when the innkeeper brings the drink, something strange happens. The liquid transforms first into grain, then acorns, and finally blood. The maid calmly explains what the signs mean. A year of good harvest, fruit on the trees, but also war and disease. Then, without explanation, she disappears. The travelers realize the woman who rode with them was never an ordinary passenger. Folklorists consider this one of the earliest recognizable versions of the vanishing hitchhiker pattern. A mysterious traveler, a ride offered, an uneasy journey, and a disappearance without explanation. In the 1940s, folklorists Richard Beardsley and Rosalie Hankey analyzed dozens of hitchhiker stories and noticed a recurring detail. After the mysterious passenger vanished, the driver sometimes discovered something left behind: a shawl, a scarf, a small coat. When the object was returned to the address the passenger had given, the family living there would explain something unsettling. The item belonged to a daughter who had died years earlier. Folklorists eventually gave this variation a name: the proffered proof, a piece of physical evidence suggesting the impossible encounter had somehow been real. A soldier trying to return home from war, a young bride on the day she was meant to be married, a teenage girl asking for a ride home after a dance, or a stranded motorcyclist beside a broken bike, a rider who, according to local records, died in a crash on that very stretch of road years earlier. The faces change, the roads change, the vehicles change, but always, before the journey ends, they are gone. One of the most famous ghost hitchhiker stories comes from outside Chicago. The ghost is known as Resurrection Mary. She asks for a ride. She sits quietly in the back seat as the car moves through the night. Often she gives only a simple direction: straight ahead. The road eventually approaches a set of iron gates. Only then does the driver realize where she asked to be taken: Resurrection Cemetery. But as the car slows near the entrance, she disappears. Local newspapers began reporting sightings as early as the 1930s. Nearly a century later, sightings are still reported. The story appears all over the world. Across several cities in India, auto rickshaw drivers tell similar stories of late-night passengers who quietly disappear before the ride is finished. Some say the rider was already dead. Others believe the spirit was simply trying to return home. In South Korea, the story often takes place inside a taxi. Drivers describe a quiet passenger, a young woman in white, who vanishes before reaching the destination, sometimes leaving only a damp imprint on the seat. In Kenya, it's a mini bus passenger, sat alone, uncommunicative with others, who then vanishes. On certain rural highways in Argentina, drivers speak of a woman who appears at night where the road bends sharply into darkness and, of course, disappears once in a car. The legend adapts to contemporary events. After the devastating 2011 Japan earthquake and tsunami, taxi drivers began reporting encounters with silent passengers whose destinations were neighborhoods, had been destroyed by the disaster, only to discover the back seat empty when the ride was over. Across cultures and generations, the pattern repeats. A lonely road, a silent passenger, and a disappearance no one can explain. Even today, late at night on certain roads, somebody or something is waiting. Elevators are one of the few spaces we willingly enter where the outside world disappears. You step inside. You press a button. The doors close. No windows. No horizon. No sense of distance. Just movement. But between floors, there is a moment no one can observe. No reference point. No visible transition. Only suspension. And in that small gap, the building briefly stops making sense. We never see what exists between one floor and the next. We only see where the doors open. Elevator folklore does not come from a single source. Early versions appear across online forums in East Asia in the early 2000s. They are not written like ghost stories. They read like instructions. Enter the elevator alone. Press a precise sequence of floors. Do not deviate. If the conditions are correct, the elevator may stop behaving the way the building says it should. Japanese versions treat the elevator less like a haunted space and more like a corrupted system. Sometimes called the elevator to another world, the ritual describes a sequence of floor selections meant to produce a different destination. The elevator still moves. The lights stay on. The doors open. But the floor waiting outside may not match the building. A hallway you have never seen. A level not listed on the directory. In this version, the horror is not an entity. It is a malfunction. Reality behaving like software with a hidden bug. In Korean retellings, the structure remains almost identical. But something changes. Because the elevator may not stay empty. At a certain stop in the sequence, the doors open, and someone enters. Most descriptions mention the same detail. A woman. She does not speak. She does not press a button. Online instructions repeat the same warning. Do not acknowledge her. Do not speak. Do not look. Because once you do, the ritual no longer behaves the way it is supposed to. Here, the fear is not the system failing. It is proximity, a silent presence standing only a few feet away. Inside a space you cannot leave. When the story spreads into Western internet communities in the early 2010s, the ritual becomes standardized. Instead of fragmented forum posts, the instructions are rewritten into a clear step-by-step format. The story becomes known simply as the elevator game. Posts circulate across forums and creepypasta sites. Find a building with at least 10 floors. Enter the elevator alone. Follow the sequence. If performed correctly, the elevator may open onto a floor that does not exist in the building. Some versions describe empty corridors. Others describe a silent version of the outside world, where the city appears dark and abandoned. The legend spreads not because people believe it, but because anyone can attempt it, which transforms the story into something unusual in modern folklore. Not just a narrative, but a repeatable system. In 2013, a real-world event briefly overlaps with the same imagery. A young woman named Elisa Lam is found dead in a rooftop water tank at the Cecil Hotel. Before the discovery, security footage shows her alone inside an elevator, pressing buttons, looking into the hallway, stepping in and out of the doorway. The video spreads online, and in communities already familiar with elevator folklore. The images feel strangely familiar. Not proof, just a pattern people had already learned to recognize. Across every version of the story, the elevator itself never changes. A sealed vertical system, a moment between floors, a movement the passengers cannot see. But in folklore, that brief transition becomes something else, a place where systems fail in meaningful ways, where reality produces the wrong result, and whether glitch, imagination, or presence, something might already be waiting. When the doors open, every generation adds its own stories to the collection. But the core of these legends remains the same. They are warnings about strangers, about curiosity, about the unknown. And maybe that is why they persist. Because deep down, people want to believe that the world still contains mysteries, even if those mysteries live in a dark mirror, an empty elevator, or the back seat of a car on a lonely road. And somewhere, tonight, someone will hear one of these stories for the first time and repeat it. Just like every storyteller before them, it happened to a friend of a friend.